The second chance. Sam Griffiss sat in the solicitor's office, watching his ex-wife Claire sign the final papers. 15 years of marriage, reduced to signatures on a dotted line. The house would be sold. They'd split the proceeds. He'd find somewhere to rent, somewhere close enough to still see Jack and Macy regularly. "You'll be all right, Sam," Claire said, not unkindly, as they stood outside on the pavement. "We both will." He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She walked to her car, and he stood there in the drizzle, wondering where the hell he was going to live. 3 weeks later, Sam was scrolling through rental listings at his mate Danny's flat, growing more depressed by the minute. Everything was either too expensive, too far from the kids, or both. £1,200 a month for a one-bedroom flat with mold in the bathroom, he muttered. This is insane. Danny, an architect who'd known Sam since university, looked over from his laptop. "You know what your problem is. You're thinking inside the box." "I'm thinking inside my budget, which is basically nothing." "No, I mean literally. You're thinking buildings, houses, flats, but there are other options." "What, like a caravan? I'm not living in a caravan park." Danny grinned. "Buy a boat." Sam stared at him. "A boat?" "Think about it. Boats are classified as vehicles, not buildings. You don't need planning permission. Your granddad left you that land near the canal, right? The agricultural plot. Just park it there." "Danny, I can't afford a boat that's actually livable." "Mate, you're about to get 70, maybe 80 grand from the house sale. You can get a seriously nice boat for that. And no mortgage, no rent, just yours." Sam laughed. It was ridiculous, completely mad. 3 pints later, he was scrolling through boat sales on his phone. The ship was moored in Bristol, and when Sam first saw her, his breath caught. She was beautiful, 45 feet of crafted wood, designed to look like an 18th-century galleon. Full rigging, brass fittings, even decorative cannons on the deck. The owner, a gray-haired man named Martin, walked him through every detail. "Built her myself over 15 years. Used her for events, corporate parties, that sort of thing. She's solid. Seaworthy, though you're not planning to sail her, I gather." "Definitely not," Sam said. "I want to live in her on land." Martin raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. "She's got 3 cabins, a full galley, wood-burning stove. The hull's sound. If you're serious, she's yours for 87,000. Sam had come with a budget of 70. He thought about the tiny, moldy flat. He thought about his kids' faces when they'd visit a pirate ship instead of a boring rental. "I'll give you 85, he said, "and you've got a deal." They shook hands on deck, and Sam became the owner of a pirate ship. Getting a 45-foot galleon from Bristol to landlocked Kidderminster was an adventure in itself. The transport company thought he was joking. It took 2 flatbed trucks, partial disassembly, and £12,000. When the convoy rolled through the Worcestershire countryside, cars pulled over to stare. Sam, following behind in his old Volvo, couldn't stop grinning. His grandfather's land sat on the outskirts of town, just over an acre of overgrown grass near the canal. Sam had a concrete pad poured, reinforced to take the weight. Then came the hard part, reassembling the ship. Danny showed up with 5 other mates. It took 3 weekends of swearing, problem-solving, and at one point rigging a pulley system that would have impressed actual 18th-century sailors. But when they stepped back and looked at her, fully assembled and proud on her concrete mooring, Sam felt something he hadn't felt in months. "Hoping. She needs a name," Danny said, handing him a beer. Sam thought about the divorce, the fear, the impossible housing market, and this beautiful, ridiculous solution. "The second chance," he said. Moving in was strange and wonderful. Sam kitted out the interior with solar panels, drilled a well for water, installed a composting toilet. The main cabin became his living space, with the wood-burning stove as the heart of it. His bedroom was compact but cozy, and the forward cabins, those were for Jack and Macy. The first time they visited, Macy shrieked with delight. "Dad, you live on a pirate ship." Jack, 7 years old and obsessed with pirates, was speechless. He just walked around touching everything with reverence, like he'd stepped into a dream. "Can we sleep here, can we, please?" Macy begged. "You've got your own cabins," Sam said, showing them. "See, your mum says you can stay every other weekend and school holidays." That night they roasted marshmallows in the stove, and Jack insisted on wearing an eye patch Sam had bought as a joke. When he tucked them into their bunks later, Macy whispered, "This is the best house ever, Dad." His heart felt so full it hurt. For 6 months life was good, better than good. Sam's utility bills were almost nothing thanks to the solar setup. The ship was warm in winter, cool in summer. Neighbors would stop by out of curiosity, and most of them loved it. The local pub, run by a woman named Margaret, started selling pirate ship pints as a tongue-in-cheek special. "You're good for business," Margaret told him. "People drive out to see it, then stop in for lunch. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." But not everyone was charmed. Sam noticed one neighbor, a sour-faced man named Gerald from down the road, who glared whenever he drove past. Once, Gerald stopped his car and shouted, "This is a residential area, not a theme park." Sam waved cheerfully and went back inside. 3 weeks later, the letter arrived. It was official council letterhead. Ray, unauthorized development at land adjacent to Canal Way. Sam's stomach dropped as he read. Someone had filed a complaint. An enforcement officer would be visiting. There were words like planning breach and enforcement action. He immediately called Danny. "Shit," Danny said, which wasn't reassuring. "Okay, look, I told you boats don't need planning permission, and that's technically true, but..." "But what?" "But the council might argue that once it's landlocked and you're living in it full-time, it becomes a permanent structure, which would need permission." "You didn't mention that before." "I was drunk and optimistic. Look, let me do some research, don't panic yet." Sam panicked. The enforcement officer, a polite but serious man named James Hartley, arrived on a Tuesday. He measured the ship, took photographs, asked questions about utilities, about how long Sam had been living there, about whether the ship could be moved. "Mr. Griffiss," he said finally, "I appreciate this is your home, but my job is to enforce planning regulations. This vessel is on land zoned for agricultural use. You're using it as a permanent residence. That's a breach." "But it's a boat," Sam said desperately. "It's not a building." "It's not in water," Hartley replied. "It's fixed to a concrete pad. In the council's view, that makes it a structure. You'll be receiving an enforcement notice shortly. You can apply for retrospective planning permission, or you can remove it. Those are your options." After he left, Sam sat on deck and stared at the fields. His phone buzzed. A text from Macy. "Can't wait for this weekend, Dad. Can we raise the flag again?" He put his head in his hands. The enforcement notice gave him 90 days to either get planning permission or remove the ship. The application fee was £462. Sam sold his guitar, the nice one he'd bought before the kids were born, to cover it. Danny went into full architect mode, drawing up professional plans, writing justifications, citing precedents. They gathered letters of support from neighbors. Margaret from the pub wrote a glowing reference. Even Claire, his ex-wife, sent a note saying the arrangement was working well for the children. "We've got a decent case," Danny said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "Unique heritage-style dwelling, sustainable features, community support. The planning committee meets in 3 weeks." Sam barely slept the night before the meeting. The vote was 7-1 against. A council member named Patricia Drummond looked almost sympathetic as she spoke. "I do feel for Mr. Griffiss, but we have to consider precedent. If we allow this, what's next? Where do we draw the line?" Sam sat in the public gallery, numb. They were telling him to destroy his home, to tell his kids they couldn't visit the pirate ship anymore, to start over with nothing. The updated enforcement notice gave him 6 months. "Dad's crying," Jack whispered to his sister that weekend. They were supposed to be asleep, but they'd heard Sam on the phone with Danny, his voice breaking. "What do we do?" Macy whispered back. "I don't know." In the morning, Sam tried to act normal, making them pancakes in the galley, letting them steer the ship with the decorative wheel. But Macy was 9 and she wasn't stupid. "Are they making you leave?" she asked. Sam couldn't lie to her. "They might, sweetheart. I'm trying to stop them, but—" "That's not fair. This is your home." "I know, but—" "We should tell people, like everyone. Maybe they can help." It was a child's logic, naive and simple, but Sam thought about it. What did he have to lose? The local newspaper reporter, a sharp woman named Kate Morrison, listened to Sam's story in the pub. She took notes, asked questions, took photos of the ship. "This is a good story," she said. "Human interest. Little guy versus bureaucracy, and it's a bloody pirate ship. Yeah, I can work with this." The story ran on the front page 2 days later. "Dad's pirate ship faces council plank." By evening, it was on the BBC website. By morning, it was international news. Sam's phone exploded. Interview requests from radio stations, television shows, newspapers. Messages from strangers offering support, advice, money. Someone in Japan sent him a check for £50 with a note. "For the fight, don't give up." A petition appeared online. "Save Sam's ship." It hit 10,000 signatures in 2 days, 20,000 by the end of the week. The council issued a statement. "Planning decisions are made based on policy, not popularity." But the pressure was building. Sam hired a planning lawyer named Emily Thornton with money he didn't have. She was expensive but sharp, and she saw angles he and Danny had missed. "The ship isn't technically fixed to the ground," she explained. "It's resting on a pad, yes, but it could be moved with the right equipment. That puts it in a gray area. We can argue it's a residential caravan which has different rules." "Can we win?" "We can fight. And with the public attention you've got, the council's going to be very careful. They don't want to be the villains in this story." They filed for an appeal. The legal fees were mounting, 15,000, then 20, then more. Sam lay awake at night doing maths that didn't work, trying to figure out where the money would come from. Then Macy saved him again. "Dad, what about crowdfunding? Like when people raise money on the internet." "Sweetheart, I can't ask strangers for money." "Why not? They're already trying to help. My friend Emma's dad did it when their house burned down." Sam looked at his 9-year-old daughter, who somehow understood the world better than he did. 3 days later, the crowdfunding page went live. Save the Second Chance helped Sam keep his home. The target was £30,000. They hit it in 4 days. Messages poured in. "Don't let the bastards grind you down." "Standing up for what matters. You're an inspiration." "My kids would kill for a pirate ship. Fight for them." Sam cried reading them, not from despair this time but from something else, something that felt like solidarity. The appeal hearing was set for a gray Tuesday in February at Kidderminster Town Hall. Sam woke at 5, too nervous to sleep. He put on the one good suit he owned, looked at himself in the mirror and thought, "This is it." Danny picked him up at 8, ready. Not even slightly. When they arrived at the town hall, Sam stopped dead. There were over 100 people outside. Neighbors, strangers, people holding signs. "Save Sam's ship and home is where the heart is." Margaret from the pub hugged him. "We've got your back, love." Claire was there with the kids. Jack wore his pirate eye patch. Macy handed him a drawing she'd made of the ship with our home written in crayon. "Win this, Dad," she said. Inside, the hearing room was packed. Emily sat beside him, calm and professional, organizing her papers. The council's barrister, a stern man named Richard Stevens, sat across the aisle. The planning inspector, a gray-haired woman named Susan Clark, called the room to order. The council's case was technical and thorough. Stevens argued planning law, precedent, the definition of mobile homes. He showed photographs of the ship on its concrete pad, measurements, technical specifications. This vessel requires specialized equipment and significant expense to relocate, he said. It is, for all practical purposes, a permanent structure. Permanent structures on land require planning permission. The law is clear. Then it was Emily's turn. She walked the inspector through case law, through definitions of caravans and mobile homes, through environmental reports showing the ship's sustainability. She presented the letters of support, the petition signatures, the economic impact on local business. The question, she said, is whether this structure is substantially different from a luxury motorhome, which could park on this same land without planning permission. Both require specialized transport. Both are expensive to move. The only difference is that this one looks like a ship. And since when is aesthetics a basis for denying someone their home? Then Sam took the stand. He wasn't a good public speaker. His voice shook. But he told the truth about the divorce, about the impossible housing market, about wanting to be close to his kids, about finding this creative solution to an impossible problem. I'm not trying to make a statement, he said. I'm not trying to break rules. I'm just trying to live, to be a good dad, to have a place where my children feel safe and happy. And I'm asking, where's the harm? Who am I hurting? The room was silent when he finished. Patricia Drummond, the council member who'd voted against him, was in the public gallery. He saw her wipe her eyes. The inspector said she'd issue her decision within 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were agony. Sam tried to distract himself, to focus on work, but every morning he checked the post with his heart in his throat. The letter came on a Wednesday. Macy brought it in from the letterbox. It's from the council, she said quietly. Sam's hands were shaking too badly to open it. He handed it to Jack. You read it, mate, I can't. Jack carefully tore open the envelope. He was 7 and not a strong reader yet, but he sounded out the words at the top of the letter slowly. Permission. Granted. The world stopped. What? Sam whispered. Permission granted, Jack read again, more confident. It says permission granted. Macy shrieked and threw herself at Sam. Jack started jumping up and down. And Sam just held them and cried. The inspector's decision was detailed and measured. She acknowledged the legal gray area, noted the substantial compliance with regulations for residential vehicles, found that the land use could reasonably be reclassified, and concluded there was no demonstrable harm warranting removal. There were conditions: proper sewage connection within 12 months, no commercial use, but those were manageable, small prices to pay. Emily called that evening. You did it, Sam, you actually did it. We did it, he corrected, all of us. Danny showed up with champagne. Margaret brought food from the pub. Neighbors Sam barely knew stopped by to congratulate him. Someone had hung a banner across the ship's bow, "The second chance lives on." That night, after everyone had left and the kids were asleep in their bunks, Sam stood on deck under the stars. The field stretched out around him, peaceful and dark. His ship creaked gently in the breeze, solid and real beneath his feet. He'd fought the council and won. He'd kept his home. His kids still had their pirate ship. But more than that, he'd learned something. That home wasn't about what was normal or acceptable. That sometimes the system could be challenged. That people, strangers even, would stand up for what was right. And that second chances, like the one painted on his ship's bow, were real. He raised a glass to the night sky. To the second chance, he said quietly, long may she sail. Behind him, through the porthole, he could see Jack's pirate flag hanging on the cabin wall. Tomorrow they'd raise it on the mast, like they did every weekend the kids visited. But tonight, Sam just stood on his ship in his home and breathed. He'd made it. They'd made it. And no council on earth was taking this away from him again. 6 months later, the sewage connection was installed. The ship had become something of a local landmark. Tourists stopped to take photos, and Sam had learned to wave and smile. The council had updated their planning guidelines to specifically address non-traditional residential structures, which Emily said was probably because of him. Claire had admitted privately that she'd been wrong to doubt him. "You're a good dad, Sam. Unconventional but good." The kids thrived. Jack had started writing stories about pirates. Macy had given a presentation at school about my dad's house that had made her teacher cry. And Sam woke up each morning in his ship, made coffee in his galley, and looked out at the sunrise over the Worcestershire fields. He'd sold his house and bought a pirate ship. Best decision he'd ever made. People said he was mad. Maybe he was. But he was home,